Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Excited to have a great guest today. Someone I've gotten to meet over the last few months, and I think is a really sharp mind in PLG. So Japna works at Productboard. She's on the growth team there. She kind of sits in a cross-functional group that includes marketers, includes product, includes engineering, and really interfaces frequently with the go-to-market side of the house at Productboard as well. And for those of you who don't know Productboard, we're actually customers of Productboard here at Correlated. So quick plug, but great product to help you kind of manage your product roadmap and kind of fill in product feedback from customers, from obviously your own criteria, and kind of do what my head of product, my co-founder Diana, calls the Tetrising of product planning and road mapping. So yeah, I would love to maybe kick things off as we get more folks joining, and maybe throw it over to you, Japna, for just a quick intro of kind of your role at Productboard, kind of how you fit in, within the sort of product growth and go-to-market groups there, and then we can go from there.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Tim, for the intro and the plug. If anyone has questions about Productboard, happy to answer them after the call, but let's jump into growth. So I won't belabor the point here. I think everyone on this call works in or around growth and has a ton of familiarity with the goals and the principles around it. But I'd love to kind of describe how we actually implement product-led growth at Productboard specifically. So I'm the product lead for the EP&D portion of growth. So my team is actually called growth with the capital G, which can be a little bit confusing when we use the terminology back and forth. But I have an engineering leader and a design leader as my partners and counterparts. And we have we've built over 3 teams within growth on acquisition, and activation, specifically around our trial experience for our paid plans, and also monetization and pricing and packaging. So that's kind of how we've structured the teams from an EPD sense, and that's kind of how my days are usually operating around the teams and what's going on there. But we also have a weekly touch point across the organization. So as Tim mentioned earlier, there's other organizations that also have growth or growthy people, essentially anyone who's looking to scale product marketing experiences to like higher velocity or a larger amount of customers. So we've got growth marketing people, we've got a scaled customer success team, and even our commercial sales team. So we meet with those folks in the other organizations on a weekly basis, at least. And also kind of on a monthly basis, we look at our business, we kind of roll up our business and look at it together. So I actually tell our team members, we have a lot of folks who haven't worked in growth before who join the team. And one of the things how I position the team is I say, hey, we are a go-to-market team also, right? So when you see the term GTM, you think sales and marketing usually, and customer success. But I think growth, the EPD growth team is the EPD part of that go-to-market team, right? So we help support sales and marketing and customer success as well, but we also implement product and design experiences in order to drive those business metrics literally across the entire user journey, right? From acquisition to activation and customer retention expansion. And that really helps kind of frame up how you think about your team and how you think about your goals. Because we share the same goals. Well, ideally, we all share the same goals between marketing, sales, and customer success. And we can get into the nitty-gritty details later, but when you don't share the same goals, life is quite terrible. And so that's how I like to set it up and how I like to talk about it. And then we also kind of liaison. We're also part of the broader EPD team. And we work with other product teams to help kind of bridge the gap between product and EPD and go-to-market, right? And we should know best how to take new products and new features to market. And then a couple like challenges in terms of what I experience here at Productboard, balancing self-serve and sales goals. I think that's something I hear from a lot of other growth leaders as well. right? On one hand, you have a goal on volume, and the other hand, you have a sales pipeline goal, especially in the B2B growth space. I think I hear this challenge a lot, and we certainly experience that. Rapid experimentation versus taking big bets. There's a time and place for both. You can't do just one or the other. You need to be able to think about that. I think that pretty much applies across the board, no matter what your business is or your go-to-market is. I mentioned this, like a lot of folks join the team, they're new, they haven't done growth before. We also have a lot of folks in different geographical locations that, maybe haven't worked in SaaS or haven't worked in growth. So just championing and advocating for the growth mindset is difficult, but is necessary because people haven't worked in that type of style, and they don't understand like what success looks like and what's kind of the modus operandi, so to speak. Being data informed versus data driven. I'm not a fan of data driven because it doesn't, like, you can't use critical thinking or qualitative thinking. You have to be able to fuse together all the insights from the market, from customer research, and from data in order to drive decisions. So if you're purely looking at data, I think you really miss the mark there. And then evolving pricing and packaging, especially for a company like ours, we're growing. You tend to not only evolve your product and your go-to-market model, but also your pricing and packaging that supplements those things. And so that's kind of an example of some of the larger bets where you have to have a discussion between experiments and larger bets and what's the right pricing and packaging for your business in its current stage. So those are some of the things that are either challenges or kind of like hot topics on the growth team here at Productboard. And I will stop talking and see if you guys have any questions. Or if you solve those challenges, then I'd love to learn from you. That.
Well, thanks for that intro and kind of a little bit of an overview. Slightly, kind of one click in on how you kind of work and how your teams are organized at Productboard. I have one maybe question as other folks are thinking about on what to kind of ask here. And I think the biggest one, and this is influenced by the type of conversations we often have with our customers and the problems we're helping to solve. But yeah, curious to hear how you think, an ideal relationship between the sales and CS and marketing side of the house, is with a growth team, especially the cross-functional kind of EPM team that you have at Productboard. What are some of the processes you have in place today, the feedback loops? How are you kind of arming them? How are they kind of giving you feedback on maybe pricing and packaging? Yeah, I'd love to hear just a little bit more on how you work and what's working and what's not. Yeah.
So I'll give you the ideal, and then I'll give you what's happening today. They're definitely not the same. Ideally, your go-to-market counterparts have teams or sections of their organization that are aligned to the same goals you're aligned to. So for example, one of my teams is an acquisition team. They should be very aligned with, one or two of marketing's main goals, like drive this amount of traffic, this amount of pipeline, increase conversion rate to lead by X%, whatever, right? On the activation side, that's about trial conversion. And then on the retention side, that's about, basically like a 6-month conversion retention and a 12-month retention, and then even expansion goals. And those are all business metrics that are common business metrics across the user journey, and someone has to sign up for those goals. But if you don't sign up for the same goal, or they don't sign up for the same goal as you do, then essentially when you need resources for a project or you're trying to do a project, it's going to conflict. Either it's going to actually go against someone else's goal, or you're just not going to get the resources because that goal is not a priority for them. And that's when the relationships really break down. So for example, previously to Productboard, I worked at Dropbox, and we had a commercial high velocity sales team that was like 100% aligned to the top level goals as we were. And we worked very, very closely, and the collaboration was excellent. And we had a product marketing team where they were 100% aligned with what we wanted to do, and a brand team aligned. And that's really one, like, you can raise the flag and you can say this is how a great structure is, but it really needs to be codified from, a leadership level down. and agreed upon at a leadership level. So then I mentioned that it's not ideal at Productboard today. An example is customer success is a great example of where they have a scaled customer success team, right? They're trying to go from the one-to-one to the one-to-many experiences. And we are very much aligned because we have the same goals, and we can actually leverage each other's content and bounce ideas off of each other. We're very collaborative. I actually feel bad because I wish I had more resources to accommodate their team. But I would say that the collaboration is very healthy there. On the sales side, I would say it's like kind of mixed, because sometimes we have the same goals, but sometimes we don't always. And we're trying to move more and more upmarket over time. But generally the collaboration is we're able to have like pretty good conversations about trade-offs we want to make. And ultimately we both want to be driving revenue at the end of the day. And then marketing, that's where we, our relationship breaks down, because their team is very, very under-resourced. And I would say is probably, there's just a lot of the sales team, the growth team, customer success team, we've been around for longer. And for the marketing team, they've got to start someplace and grow. So, they can only take on one goal. They only have so many people and so much time. And it's unfortunately not the goal that would support the growth team's goal. So we're in, very often constant misalignment on what it is that we want to be driving. And that's really important because that's top of funnel. We don't get the traffic, like the rest of the funnel screwed, right? So still things I'm working through. I think it's like a constant conversation since I've been here, but that's what I'm shooting for, is taking on the goal and getting like dedicated resources or X% dedicated resources to that goal. And then having like single threaded owners who are responsible for those goals be a part of, our weekly and monthly cross-organizational alignment.
I think that's really pragmatic, and the ideal scenario, like you said, is the goals are extremely clearly defined, and maybe even ideally just uniform across functions and teams. But that's not always the case. The incentives are not always the case, but trying to find middle ground or alignment is the challenge and the opportunity. I'd love to actually take some of these questions from the chat. And by the way, people can ask questions, raise your hand in Zoom. And if you want to sort of verbally ask the question, that's fine too. I'm going to call on you, Jocelyn, to ask your question that you posted in the chat. Is that like it?
Yeah, no problem. I actually know some of the people from your CS team, and I've heard the same, that you guys are very collaborative. So I'll just back that up for anybody who doesn't know the Productboard team. I was curious about, and I think you sort of answered it, but maybe just a little clarity for me, how the engineering resources, especially when they overlap between sort of core versus growth engineering resources, tends to be like a point of friction. Like, can you speak to sort of the negotiation of priorities when it comes to things that touch the core product or that sort of engineering bottleneck?
Yeah. Are you speaking to a scenario where core and growth are sharing the same engineering resources?
Or it's, yes, in some cases, like some parts of the core product are like that. Like there are some things that don't kind of interact too much. I'm just curious about the engineering, because I think the growth goals, growth being aligned with these other teams, I think helps sharpen the focus there. But the one other gap I've got is like prioritizing with the roadmap or backlog, where there's an engineering kind of overlap, and just how you're navigating those conversations. Or does engineering actually have the same shared goals, and that's how you're bridging that gap?
So the way we've set it up is our core EPD teams have completely separate people resources across.
Okay. So you've just completely segregated them. Okay.
Completely segregated them. But that's also because we've grown to a size that we could do that.
Yeah.
And I've certainly been in situations where, 2 or 3 jobs ago, I worked at a startup and we had growth goals and core product goals, and we were one squad. And it's really up to leadership to have very clear prioritization, stack prioritization of the goals. So like you may have a goal that says, deliver this new feature feature value or product value so we
Yeah.
can capture like this market. Okay, that's not
Yeah.
really the growth goal, it's a core product
It's
goal,
not.
which is fine. All right. Everything serves the outcome of the business outcomes at the end of the day. But if you have a clear stack rank from leadership of how they want to be balancing resources between different
Yeah.
goals and what they want to achieve by, let's say, end of year, 6 to 12 months, then you can kind of make a plan backwards as to like what is even possible and have that trade-off conversation. But ideally, as you grow, you start splitting into different areas where you have maybe a concentration or specialty of what kind of goal that team actually pursues, because they will not only start to own the domain knowledge, but they'll also have their own ideas of what's the best goal to even go after, why would they even want to prioritize it. And
so until you have that segregation, you're probably having to go and kind of restack rank all the goals where there might be conflict over resources on some sort of periodic basis. Because I think sometimes the engineering goals, just because they're talking about them more frequently, are getting that resourcing, and then there maybe is another goal will get kind of like sidelined a bit. And so it's maybe just the structure around revisiting the priorities.
Yeah, definitely revisit the priorities at the very least on a quarterly basis. It also sounds like your engineering goals and your product goals are not aligned. And so
it's not that they're wholly unaligned, but yeah, there's some tension.
Make your engineers sign up for the product goals. Like every function in EPD should have the same goal. Okay. And they should stack rank. So as a product person, if I'm signing up to, improving app performance, which is an engineering goal, like I'm going to sign up for it. And
Okay. That's helpful.
So I think there's maybe one thing that's interesting to add on how we do it, still based on the same topic. I think there's two different aspects of it. One, which I 100% agree with, right? Like it's extremely beneficial if you have your executive team completely aligned to kind of putting it down. Unfortunately, that's not always the ideal situation that you start off with. And then there's a different approach that you need to take. The way that we are looking at it in the end is what is the potential? So everything that we're looking at, we're trying to look back at what would be the impact on the company. And the one that has the most impact is the one that overall wins the battle. So like, for example, if one of our goals is, okay, we want to significantly increase our new business. There's two different aspects that we can do it, right? From the sales side, we might be pushing for, hey, these are features that are limiting us to be able to get into this specific audience. But then on the security side, we might be talking about a specific security certificate that opens up the market on another field. So in the end, how do we look at it? When it is something that we as a sales team can help with, we, for example, mention how many customers are interested in it. That allows us to already connect it to a real specific ARR target. I know that if we release this feature, I already have 10 customers waiting for it, and 2 of them are our biggest customers. If it is something that's not that straightforward because it's not based on our own customers, like let's say, make your platform FedRAMP qualified, meaning that governments can utilize it. Then it's more of a little bit looking, okay, how many of our competitors are doing that as well? What type of benefit does that give us over the other competitors? Does it make sense to invest in that specific initiative? So we're trying to connect everything back to what is the actual potential and revenue that it can create for the organization. And then we're organizing it based on that on priority. On top of that, we're also looking at how much does it impact our overall market. So for example, if you have an SMB, a mid-market and an enterprise sales team, there's probably going to be different things that make an impact. Like if we're looking at FedRAMP, it's going to be much more on the enterprise side versus other features that can be on other sides. So we're also looking at it. Is this something that makes impact for everyone? Is it the impact that makes it on the enterprise side or on the SMB side? So that's how we're handling it. By the way, nice to meet everyone. I'm Aaron. I'm Director of Sales at Monday.com.
Hi, Aaron. Good to see you again. Thanks for that.
Good to see you. That's a pleasure.
I'd love to pass the question mic, the virtual mic, over to Craig, and then I would love to get to some of those hand raisers as well. So Craig, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, for sure. What struck me, I was listening to a podcast and Brian Cargan, the CMO over at Envision, mentioned about goal alignment is to make a product-led initiative work well, especially in a B2B environment. I come from a sales background. You see a lot of bad behavior between sales and marketing, right? You have qualified leads, you have you have sales trying to figure all that out, and marketing too. But what really kind of struck me is that he had implemented a goal, like a revenue goal from sales, marketing, and product together. And I find that fascinating because I feel like I'm going to go to this huge B2B company, leading their whole growth initiative. And I'm going, like, am I naive even talking about that subject? Right? I mean, is that even something that's even doable with a company going into? Because I do feel that is fantastic. I think we built a fantastic idea, but how can that even be possible, right? I know little stages, little projects here and there, but honestly, I don't. Trying to figure out how that could work. Anybody have an idea?
That's a good question. I have some thoughts on this, because we're using the word revenue a lot, and I like to just push back on that. When you have a product-led growth go-to-market motion that's already kind of up and running, having a revenue goal makes sense. Like, that is its own go-to-market distribution motion. You want to monetize your free user base, or you want to expand upon the user base and use some engagement loops to do so. But if you don't have anything and you're starting from scratch, putting a revenue goal and saying this is the impact is just like, like this. It's like, it doesn't really make sense because you don't really know the potential. Like, you could number crunch all day and like you'll never get to the right number. So I'm wary of always using revenue to prioritize because I think it's very short term and makes people lose sight of long-term strategic bets. We made that mistake at Dropbox multiple times, and had a lot of learning lessons from that. And I think it takes a nuanced leadership to really figure out when it is, like, what are actual realistic goals to set for what stage your product or your go-to-market motion is, like how immature or how mature it is, and how immature and how mature the market is to take that. So, like, for example, completely new, like Productboard, we're creating a new category, right? The market is not established, and there's quite a lot of unknowns. So while if we're creating a goal around like an existing thing that we've already have cycles around, yeah, absolutely, create a revenue goal around it. Now you know what the impact is of a potential strategy. But if we're making a completely new strategic bet and we have no idea, we're like not familiar with that market, we have no idea what is the potential, how to even sell in that market, what the ICP is, like, we could make revenue projections and it would be, guarantee it would be wrong. So in those situations, I think it's always good to think about delivering customer value and figuring out what is the type of value you can bring, and is it solving something that's actually painful enough someone's going to pay for, and then just start like putting it out there and experiment and learning and get it to a point where you have enough knowledge that you can start kind of creating more of those more specific revenue goals. From a general level, yes, I do think that the different functional areas should be aligned to a top level goal. It's just that I think the goals need to be more nuanced depending on what the strategy is.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Awesome. I'd love to go.
I might be able to give one example there that we have, because it's not that all of our goals are focused on revenue. I do want to clarify that, right? It helps us prioritization, but it's obviously revenue, effort, overall impact, trying out new things. But one good example probably on how we did it to create an overcoupling goal between marketing, customer success, and sales. It's not revenue, because focusing on revenue would not actually push the customer success team to do the work that we want them to do. The one that we ended up coming up with is MAP, which is standing for monthly active paying people. This is like a goal central to the whole organization that has a positive impact on all of us. If there's more users actively using it, it helps sales to grow the account. It means that customer success is to do a good job in retaining the customers, and it helps marketing to sell more by utilizing existing customers. So like one of the key criteria that we utilize to align all of the teams is focusing around monthly active paying people. How many people can we get in the platform that are actively utilizing it? So that's actually another revenue goal.
Well, we got 4 minutes left, so I want to go maybe try and get 2 more questions in. Gilad, do you want to go with yours, and then we'll go to Carla with the last one.
Yes, thank you. And I think it's related to the last statement that I made. The scale CS team and the growth team sounds like very similar profiles and somewhat similar goals. I wonder how is the overlap and where is the demarcation point for you guys? Maybe talk about that a bit.
I wouldn't say that the skills overlap that much, right? So like they don't have engineering, product, or design. They're more very much focused on customer touch points. So they have a whole coaching program. They set up group demos, they do workshops to be able to set up specific workflows in the product. They've built an entire academy. So that's all stuff that they're very much content focused. And they're also close partners to us because they actually interact with the customer more often than we do. So we get quite a lot of learnings from them. But we're able, I mean, we have engineers and designers, so we're able to actually implement specific things in the product. So for example, if they have a webinar that says, you know, set up your Jira integration, like we could actually productize that if we felt like that was an impactful thing to do.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, and then last one, maybe not. Carla, do you want to chime in with your question on referral programs?
Sure, super happy to do so. So maybe just for context, we're a pretty early stage company, around like 45,000 monthly recurring users. And we currently work in our PLG motion, but we think about investigating like referral programs as like another growth channel, basically. Since Dropbox is pretty known for you, Japna, it would be super interesting to learn if you would, or like when you would recommend to think about like such a program and like in which circumstances.
Yeah, I'd say it's a great tactic in general. So to kind of figure out if you think it'll work for you, I think you need to, I don't know your product very well, but I'd ask questions like, at what point does the product become valuable to a user? What's the incentive right now for someone to refer a user? Does the product become better if that person actually joins the ecosystem? Or if not, then is it more like a DoorDash or Uber Eats style where you have to get some value metric back credited to your account in order to refer? So what I mean by that is Dropbox, the business product was a team product. So you actually would invite people in. And in that case, like your incentive system may be a little bit different, for example, compared to like a consumer kind of siloed consumer product that doesn't have collaboration, and like a DoorDash or Uber Eats where like, I don't really care if my friend's on it or not, but if you give me the $7, like great, I'll do it. So you want to kind of go through the thought process of what gives value back to the user, and then what is a specific value metric, aka what it is that they're using in the product. And then referral programs generally, they tend to be I don't want to say one-off, but they work for a certain amount of time and then they kind of no longer work anymore. So at Dropbox, for example, we had the space race where if you invited or referred someone, you would get 2 gigs for free. And then a lot of people did it. And then it fizzles out and plateaus. So you kind of have to think about like, what's my next growth tactic afterwards? So don't expect it to be working for you forever or acquiring users for you forever.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
We are a product for teams, essentially a competitor to all this bunch of like meeting recorders that's currently in this space or like in this call. So it is a team product, and I wasn't sure if it makes sense for team product or is it more like for single users, essentially referral programs.
Yeah, then I think about potential invite and expansion loops before I would think about a referral program, and maybe that's something that you already have. Again, I don't have too much context, but if the value is so much greater, if the value of the product is so much greater with your teammates on it, then that's a little bit of a different mechanism.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're 1 minute over, so now is the time to sign off. But thank you so much, Japna, for your time. Thanks for everyone for joining and some great questions. One of the better, more lively discussions today. So really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks again, Japna. Really appreciate your time and insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for the
All right.
questions and comments, and see you all in 2 weeks.
Yeah, see you later on. Bye, guys.